Welcome to Jane, see the virgin, but not really anymore. She's not a virgin, but it's still season 5. Man, can you imagine if she had been a virgin all this time? Even though she's a mom virgin, it's wild. Anyway, here we go. I don't know why I'm singing everything. I've got musical improv today, so that's why. Anyway, also, I should explain what I'm doing. So, welcome to Messy Little Film Reviews. They're obviously a mess, but they're about, films that I liked or thought could be better, and I just talk about cinema because I one day want to be accepted into the Hollywood Critics Association. I feel like I have not lived until I'm officially and widely known as a critic. My Capricorn would be very happy. So, yeah, basically, I will just review these films, and if you like them, feel free to follow me on social media so I can turn things into currency, or donate if you want me to do less hustle and you're just being supportive. I've got like a Patreon down below, and all of my stuff goes to basically funding bigger productions that employ Hispanics and LGBTQs on screen and behind screen. So super fun, super cool. Cannot wait to do more about that. So as you know, Michael is alive. He is not dead. We thought he was dead, but huge psych, honestly. It was freaking Rose. And anyway, it starts off with like Jane is doing Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, and she's talking about how she's like honoring Michael, but he hasn't even been dead this whole time. And she was like passing it down to Mateo. Michael is now going by the name Jason. He has like amnesia. Rose was basically behind it, made people slow his heart rate and take away and bribed people to sign his death certificate. It's so awful. Why would someone do this? She was so happy. And then she took it away and made all this grief for no reason. And she made a book about their happy ending and just, oh no, just really, really rough. We also left with, like, who was shot. Milos he's still alive, and he, like, is going to do the shares of the hotel for his freedom, but JR gets all mad about Petra even considering it, and then he flees, so that's not great. Louisa wants to go find Rose and see why the heck she did this, because, like, this was just mean to Jane, or maybe it was just, like, Michael being a pain in his side, so she did this to hurt him. Sorry, there's a plane going on, but the show must go on, as you know. But yeah, there's nothing that can be done but his memories, and Jane is just having a mental breakdown, because I don't know how you would even process this information. Like, wow, I feel really bad. Jason Michael is, like, attracted to Petra, which is just, ugh. But she's a lesbian now, so why? Petra finds Milos hiding in a giant bear, which is creepy. It's like her twin's giant stuffed bear, and she turns him into the police, but JR breaks up with Petra, so that sucks. JR is just impatient, doesn't want Petra to be around while Petra is learning to change. She's over it. And Jason Michael doesn't really want to go through memory lane with Jane, who is like, she doesn't even know if she is married to him now, has no idea, like, there's not a booklet for this, and he's just, he goes, it's not my fault that I'm different, he's the victim here, and he just would rather learn all of his memories digitally. And poor Raphael is just devastated that Michael's back, and it's just like, feels like he cannot compete. But Jane wants to move in with Raphael because it's like, Michael is different now, and like, it is what it is. Like, it sucks. That was a horrible tragedy. What Rose did was awful, but things have changed, and she's in love with Raphael. So Jane is having some Catholic guilt because she is still technically married to Jason Michael. Jason Michael wants the money that she made selling his car, which was mad cringe, dude, mad cringe. Michael's death certificate is nullified, and her and Michael are still married, so Jane has to divorce Michael. But good Catholic girls don't divorce, because that is hell. And Raphael doesn't understand because she's using birth control, she's having sex now. oh, what does that mean? But marriage is sacred, so it's very confused. Rogelio is mad because River has more dialogue, which is just, he's the worst. I honestly wish he would be fired. He's so bad. I don't like him. Go away, Rogelio. But you're Jane's dad, so we have to. The reason Rose took Michael's memory is that she had promised Louisa she would stop killing people. This is Marcy logic, I will be honest. Jane and Michael end up kissing, and she realizes that she has to get a divorce, and Jason just keeps lying about the divorce papers. So River is making twice as much as Rogelio. I love this. More women should. Usually they don't, so it is better. Mateo figures out that Jason is alive. Mateo is fighting with Petra's girls, who get mad when Mateo hits Anna, who is like, do not touch my body, which I love. That she was like, she taught them to protect themselves, and Elsa kicks Mateo on behalf of her sister. And it's like, Jane should not coddle her kid. She needs to discipline him. Rogelio accidentally paralyzes River's face because he kicks a box that she was by. Mateo confesses that he feels left out, but the twins feel that they have a right to ostracize Mateo. Jason wants Jane to go out on a fishing date, and she is trying to prove, she accepts because she's just trying to prove that she does not have feelings for Jason. And Rogelio thinks he should be paid because of just racism in Hollywood, which, okay, he's got a point too, but why does it be so insufferable about it, you know? Jane isn't really feeling anything for Michael. And she apologizes to Petra for dominating Raphael's time and understands why Petra feels left out. And Petra is like, it has nothing to do with Raphael. It's you that I feel left out about. And they admit that they like each other, and I really love that. I really, really love it. I also love that Brooke Shields agrees to act with one side of her face, because it's just like, how to film people with disabilities is a very poignant topic that we need to discuss, because Hollywood is just like, nope, there's so many of you, goodbye. And it's like, you should just film people with disabilities. You put us on your stories anyway. And it's very messed up that Rogelio put her in the hospital twice with what he was doing. I think one was for like an allergic reaction, but I still feel like Rogelio doesn't deserve the raise because he's kind of a wild character, but I get that he fought for his projects and that it is hard, and, you know, he is, like, a Latino man, and they do get messed up, and he wants validation in America. It's very funny because it's like they love Petra like a sister, even though Petra does have a real-life sister that they're no longer acknowledging, but that's probably for the best because she was definitely a wild one. Sorry, my cat is meowing. He's probably just feeling the heartbreak because we're going to allow Jason to go back to Montana, and Jane and Raphael talk about having more kids, like, you know, would you be open to adopting, and, you know, would maybe want to be more than an only child, think about, like, the future and how exciting that can be. And he gives the divorce papers, and she lets go of Jason, and it's crying. I mean, it'd be so hard. I still believe there's something there, even though she feels nothing. But it is probably not to the magnitude of what it has before, because she's had to do, like, the grieving process. Like, it's been years and years at this point. And, of course, Michael gets his memories back and remembers everything. It's like that traumatic event triggers all the other past ones, and it's just, so rough. Petra's mom is back and demanding $100,000 for her to leave, which is just wild. Alba thinks that Jorge is in love with her because of all of these romantic letters, but maybe he's faking it because he has to keep up the front of the green card. And Michael still loves her. And Jane, like, knew his memories came back just by the way of, like, what he said to her. I mean, I guess when you were so close like that, you would know. And they catch up, and, you know, Michael still loves her, even though he knows she has, like, everything she's ever wanted, is so proud of the book. Like, oh, such a heartbreaking moment. Oh my gosh, I can't, but yeah, I think I would choose Michael. I would be really hard not to. I don't think I could divorce him either. Meanwhile, there's, like, just nightmares of Michael taking away the family with Raphael. He's just being very, very rough. I mean, man, this is just a super tough situation. I don't even know how to talk about it. It's making me so emotional right now. Petra's mom is going to sue her for emotional distress. Petra thinks that Jane should be with Raphael, that fate has thrown Raphael and her together, but I don't know. It's Michael, isn't it? It feels like Michael's to me. Jane made the decision that she would mail the divorce papers sloshed, but she was drinking when she made the decision, so she rushes and gets the papers from the mailman after her whole, story of that. I don't think she should have made the decision sloshed. I think it really has to be in her heart of what she wants to do. And I think she's right to take her time to process. She shouldn't have to rush to this decision. She should see what Raphael never gave her. I mean, I feel like she needs Michael. Our JR and Petra get back together, and she says her worst fear is not turning out like her mother. It's living her life without JR, because she really loves her. Jorge Alba's husband doesn't even care about grandmother's dress. I didn't really like it, but he didn't need to be so mean. He didn't even notice, and his sister is the one who made his letters really convincing, and it's just, poor Alba. She deserves better, honestly. Michael reads her book and hopes that they will get their happy ending someday soon. This is so tough. I hate this. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm doing a terrible review job, but it's so hard. I want to cry. I just want to agree with Michael. I don't think that's the way it ends up. And Raphael's just at his breaking point, having his own memories flood about how he's always kind of been second choice to that. But also, she never, the universe kind of forced her and Raphael together, and I don't know what that means, but Raphael makes her leave. Mateo doesn't want to, so she is kicked out from both of them. And I think that's really messed up. I think 100% then she needs to pick Michael, because that's not okay. Michael would never do that to her. Michael would leave. So Jane has to go back to her home and is finding naked Jorge in her room, which is great. I'm so awful that Raphael has kicked Jane out of their house, because, she helped him, gave him a place to stay. She needs to just be with Michael, honestly. And he punishes her for her natural feelings with Michael. Of course they would be there. And they make Mateo basically turn against and say that he hates Michael and Jane. And now we've got the insurance company coming because his life insurance is now fraud, which is just rough. Rogelio, meanwhile, is mad that his child is born to Esteban. He just your child can have multiple relationships. Just be okay. And Rogelio makes sure that Esteban gets a job in Mexico. It's pretty, Rogelio, also the fact that Michael wrote little love notes in her book, I can't. So cute. I hate the voice that Jane got to be a dispassionate narrator on the events, because the people want a book about this, but also I really do want a book about this, so I am probably going to criticize. Mateo is out of control because he runs away towards traffic, and then when Jane catches him, he goes, "Don't touch my body," and keeps saying stranger danger, and it's just so awful. And Raphael just wants to give him a pass, which is so awful. Either way, Jane and Michael own $40,000 because of the life insurance fraud, and they thought that he was dead. So they should just give it to him for trauma, but I guess it doesn't work like that. Esteban is so much better than Rogelio. He admits that he comes from a broken home and that he didn't want the baby to feel abandoned, so he left, and it's just so dumb, but he makes up with Darcy, so Rogelio undoes the damage that he did. Mateo doesn't come to Jane's birthday party because he's sick, and Mateo just is pretending to be sick too, so it's just awful. But he actually was really sick, so then Jane feels really bad because she just assumed. But also Mateo's been acting so bad. The way Raphael let Mateo gang up on her, Jane cannot be with him. She just cannot. All of Jane's notes that she's been taking on the situation get swept up in the wind and fall into a construction site. But Jane still has feelings for Michael, even though Raphael is feeling that the true love symbol, because they have the little glowy heart that I love so much. I love it. But she can't dismiss she doesn't have feelings for Michael, so it's just awful. JR isn't feeling safe around Petra, which is maybe fair. Petra is not the most safe person. Mateo is just being a huge brat. He's refusing a bedtime story and a kiss, and it's just, the rejection from her son is just really terrible, and Jane just cries, and then when Mateo sees that, he shows up and they make up, And then Raphael kind of has a mental breakdown, and he tries to attempt suicide with drugs, which is, not the best, buddy. Raphael, of course, doesn't pick up Mateo because he is not doing great. And then Jane remembers their last conversation different than the actual last conversation they had, as I'm sure that happens. Petra's kids watch a lot of shows about the opiate crisis in America, so they know that their dad is popping some pills. Yeesh, yeesh, yeesh. Petra finds out why Raphael is dealing with it and, like, what the drugs are for, and she says that she's fine, she's handling it, and that if Raphael wanted her to know, he would tell her. Jane gets mad that Michael is still investigating Rose. I mean, I'm not surprised, because that's just kind of what he does. Zoe is struggling with her sex drive, and her grandma's like, get a vibrator. But it's a good idea. Grandma is also, she's just on a wild trek. She, like, grabs Jorge's butt, it just is what it is, she's going for it. I'm glad that's not as repressed. I'm glad to see this growth, honestly. So Raphael's not on drugs, he's on antidepressants, which is probably, honestly, for the best for him. He really needs it, but not talking about it, even though I understand there's a stigma, particularly for men of color. It is creating a lot of chaos for the family, and you have to support choices even you don't understand, I weirdly am rooting for Jane to go lesbian and be with Petra at the same time, but I think if she has to be straight, I still want Michael, So Petra is trying to impress JR's friends, and Jane helps her out and teaches them how to dance. All you gotta do is try to spell your name with your butt. Gotta try that. Honestly, sounds like a helpful tip. Raphael just requests space from Jane, which is probably for the best. I think sometimes seeing somebody you love a lot, it'll just make everything worse. So Michael invites Jane to go to Montana. At first she freaks out because she's like, bruh, how am I going to do that? I love being around my son, Mateo. And she brings a bunch of suitcases, and that causes them to miss their plane. But then she won't get into a car with a stranger, which Michael gets all mad about. And listen, she is a young Hispanic girl. She should not get into the car with strangers. Like, great that you are here to defend her, I guess. But still, like, I could understand her not wanting to, get in any trouble. Especially, like, you have not had the luck. So there's no cell phone service. Michael wanted to eat a possum for stew. Eat old Marcy. It's very picturesque. Michael has a rival ranch, just like old Harvest Moon. Jane kind of daydreams about living in Montana with Michael because he has suggested that, there's too many ghosts where they currently are, so they need to, have a fresh new start. Jane admits that she is in love with Raphael. They cry. I hate it. But she makes her way back to Miami. And Michael is her past, but Raphael is Jane's now, her tomorrow, and her always. Ugh. So beautiful. But Raphael is like, hey, I can never trust you again, which is awful. And she decides that she's going to fight for Raphael. Mateo is struggling with reading. Jane confesses all of her love to Raphael, but his bosses arrive, and he was, like, showing off in a thing, and they reprimand him for thinking that it's, like, a date night or whatever, and he gets fired, and Raphael is done. And we get into this really good lesson that is, like, hey, just because you love somebody, it doesn't mean you get to have them, and it's a really sad but true lesson. The twins are the ones who've actually been targeting JR, which is a lot. They had seen JR with a gun, and so they related guns to bad people, so they think that it was her, and they thought that they were protecting her, which is, they're honestly so badass. Jane helps her dad come up with this, like, science fiction past future show, and Jorge finally loves Alba, which is nice. I mean, he should have loved her way earlier. Sorry for the plane. We're just over it. Petra is going to put her twins into therapy, which is really smart and nice and so good. I love that mental health is becoming a discussion. Thank you. So Jane and her dad sell a show. Alba and Jorge are going to get married, but she cannot. call Raphael to tell. Brooke Shields does not want Jane to write the script, but Rogelio convinces her to convince Brooke Shields. Raphael wants Mateo to meet Luisa. Jane wants to think it over. JR calls Petra's kids spoiled brats, which is not good because she was trying to win the Graces. Even though Jane wants to win points with Raphael, she also allows Luisa to be in Mateo's life because she always wanted a big family, and she didn't really get that as a little girl, so she wants to give that to Mateo. I'm not crying, you're crying. Jane gifted Alba with an uncrumpetable flower. Jane gets her dad to confess because she notices her editor's number on a script, and he had called them to say if it didn't sell 10,000 books, he would help publish it, and she gets mad because it wasn't published on its own merit, like he helped her out, and so she's going to be really mad, and River ends up loving her script, and Jane decides that she's going to punish her dad by giving River more lines, more close-ups, and I think he's worth it. I mean, it is the sweet thing that he did, but it's also like he needs to let Jane make her own choices and involve Jane in it, and he knew that she was talented enough to be capable of it, but still, like, he needs to give her space for her to fly. JR never wanted kids, but they try, like, co-paring where Petra is the fun one, JR is the hard one. But it seems like it's going to work out. But Jane gets a job in Houston. Alba and Jorge get married. They all sing songs about sex. Rose's money has been funneled into Luisa's account. Jane is in a pickle again because she has to kind of figure out how she's going to split her time between being a mom and writing on a TV show and writing a book, and it's all just very, very, very difficult. And then it is announced and figured out that Mateo has ADHD. Things are never going to be easy for this kid, huh? He's got it tough because that's a hard one, but also explains a lot of this behavior and humanizes him not as a demon child and as a child that's just, struggling with mental illness, which is usually how it goes. Raphael, though, makes it hard. He doesn't want Mateo to be tested because he's got generational trauma. Petra wants to make long-distance work with JR. Raphael is all mean and thinks that, like, Petra's children should be tested too, and Petra's like, our children are in therapy, and she tells that he needs to cut Jane some slack, and Petra gives Jane some time off because she needs it to balance all of this stuff. But she realizes, because Jane kind of just points out, like, why couldn't JR get a job in Miami? Raphael is all mad that Jane went and did the thing behind his back. And he admits that he hired a lawyer so that she's not making medical decisions about their son ever again. Jane helps him secure this house deal by stalling. There's this creepy Bobby guy who is working for Rose, really, and not just protect. Luisa did sign the papers, but she was blackout drunk when she did it. Petra made the call to get JR a job in Miami, and JR is not happy about it when she realizes. And then Mateo has ADHD, and even though he has it, he's the same kid as he is today, and Jane is worried about losing all of the money, but Raphael is like, money can't buy passion, and she deserves to passionately write her novel. JR just has to make the decision, even though it's painful, to break up with Petra and move to Houston. She just sees too much baggage with Petra, and so she's just, wants to start over. Petra was going to propose. Poor Petra. It was real rough. They take a friendship reading because it's engraved with Jane, because JR is also a Jane. Honestly, I love that, and you know what, Petra and Jane should just get married. That's who I want it. Goodbye. That's the end of it. That's how I'm imagining it. I don't care what the rest was said. I don't care that we're only halfway through the season. They are married now. Thank you. I need my queer content, and I will create it. Anyway, Jorge moves into Alba's, which is weird for Jane. They do some dietary discipline with Mateo. They make him exercise before school. And they have a mantra where it's not about the days, it's about the pattern, which I really, really like. I do not like that Jorge treats her grandma like the 1950s, but also, yeah, I mean, her grandma's like, it's my life, but still, I'm just like, ugh, you know? Zoe is cancer-free. I'm kind of glad they let go of that storyline. I feel like it was a little bit out of their element, you know? It didn't super go with everything. River is in love with Rogelio. I can't see why, I guess super method acting. Mateo is super influenced by Jorge's stuff. He's been, like, getting rid of stuff, and we also find out that Raphael has a date, which is kind of crushing. Poor Jane. They're also, Rogelio and River are so mean to their younger actors, but basically, Jane is just tired of her grandmother being, like, a cook and cleaning perfect woman, and Mateo is being influenced by Jorge and is, like, watching the TV. He refuses to take his empty dinner table to the sink. That's part of his behavioral routines. And she just asked Jorge, like, hey, can you wait to watch TV until Mateo's asleep just to do this? And that he can pick up dishes when Mateo's around just to be influence. And Jorge is, like, fine with it, but Alba is really mad. And she is like, this is how she wants to live her life, and she has been taking care of Jane and her mom her whole life, and she says that Jane needs to apologize to Jorge, which I hate, and says that, you know, she overstood her boundaries, and then he gives Jane, like, a list of things to work on. I hate it. It's so gross, but I guess, I don't understand. Okay, whatever. I also need a Jane, the way she helps Mateo run. I need that in my life, you know? But I just think, it just was way better, you know? Like, it's so dumb, like, Jane absolutely had a reason, because, like, she's living there, too, and she helped her family, too. She helped her grandmother get a green card. It, like, literally, she wouldn't be there, too, so it's just a little bit weird. I mean, like, I get about respect, but it is what it is. River keeps kissing Rogelio, even for longer after cut, and Zoe, unfortunately, has to watch it, even though she understands that it's part of a job. It's still uncomfortable. Acting is weird this way. And Zoe goes and fights her, which is not great. And River apologizes and says that she's lonely and keeps kissing him, though. Like, why? Just stop. Be respectful to the girls. He also says, like, if River doesn't stop, he's going to report her to HR because they are not going to do it because he loves Zoe, which is good for Rogelio. I don't know that if he would have done that in season 1, so I'm proud of him. Good job, buddy. So they come to some conclusions about Mateo stuff. They say, like, hey, you know, we're going to lay off the diet on the weekend because they want to enjoy being around their kid, and right now they don't. And you can't keep running around the block every time Mateo walks out. Behavioral therapy isn't just working. And so they're going to ditch early morning exercise. Mateo is the class clown, and they're doing, like, a school musical, and he decides he wants to be a helicopter, and he does that, and he ruins everything, and all the class people hate him, which is maybe fair. He is a little bit out of control, but he also has a mental illness, you know, so it's not easy. So they have to put Mateo on medication for ADHD because nothing else is really working. So now Raphael has a new girlfriend, Julie, and so does JR, they see, because there's 2 women together on that paper, and they both feel pretty sad. Milos is threatening to sell the Bella because he broke in, and he wants Petra to say that it was an accident, but Milos is psychotic and dangerous, so, you know. Jane stalks Raphael's girlfriend's Instagram and says, oh, when your boyfriend's baby mama is a stage 5 clinger and she wants to retaliate, Petra is like, hey, no, be nice, and Jane agrees. Rogelio thinks that River is going to kill him, so he hires a bodyguard, and River kind of likes that bodyguard. Jane encouraged Raphael to date Julie and vice versa, and Raphael's kind of annoyed because he doesn't like her. I also want cashew string cheese, which was featured here. So Mateo got a lot of schooling from Jane's mom, and he then shouts but he ruins it all because he makes it to the big day, but he shouts at a baby for crying in the entire performance. You know, we've all heard it. And Mateo is like, you know, he doesn't want to be this way anymore, so they put him on medication for ADHD. Raphael admits that he is still in love with Jane, which is so awesome, and he admits that he couldn't stop. They have this picture-perfect kiss. It's amazing. She does a big musical number and sings a very goofy song. Raphael teases Jade about proposing. They have the big La Torita game that they all have beef with because of how competitive they all are, so it's very funny. Petra's new assistant is in cahoots with Milos. Jane wins in La Torito, and then she's saying, like, suck it, and then Raphael proposes with all of the riddles in the group, and it's such a dumb but sweet way to propose. Mateo doesn't really believe that the wedding is actually going to happen. They always get me in these sweet romantic moments. I always cry. So they decide to go to the courthouse since Mateo doesn't believe them and they're going to get married. They've both had big fancy weddings. So Rogelio is wearing a tail all the time so that he doesn't look constipated. So he gets used to it. What a dude, you know. Petra is mad because Petra wanted to be Jane's maid of honor because she's never had that choice. Jane gets her an ugly mint dress, so that Petra's dreams can come true. Zoe is considering going to nursing school. Mateo is worried that Michael is going to come in. Jane confesses that they did kiss. Alba plays La Dorita with Jane's mom and says if she wins, her mom has to go to nursing school. Jane gets her hair tangled in the sewing machine, which is very, very scary. In the past, they played La Dorita, and Zoe wanted to quit school so she could dance, and her dad cheated at the game so that she would have to stay in school, and Zoe was mad because this time Alba does the same thing. Petra's assistant has actually been on her time all the time, and that they've been tricking Milos. It's also not fair that Raphael gets mad because they weren't really together when they were there, but yeah, Petra made all the crap up about the dress, but it's just mean because she like put blood, sweat, and tears, and she's gonna get married now looking like a hunchback. And honestly, for a dress that's supposed to be ugly, Petra looks super great in it. They agree to have a big wedding. Zoe is gonna go to healthcare school. Ralph wants Petra to be the best man only has her, and Mateo can be the ring bearer. Her best friend is having trouble conceiving, and she wants one of Jane's eggs. Rogelio is live streaming until the series gets picked up. Oof. All of her family thinks that, you know, it would be a terrible idea for Jane to give Linnea her eggs because it would be donating a biological child and letting her raise Mateo's brother or sister, and it would be harder than Jane thinks to let go. But obviously it is Jane's body, and she can do whatever she wants. Raphael wants to go back to the hotel business. Mateo tells everyone that Jane is having another baby because he had overheard. Raphael goes back to work at the hotel. Jane has this terrible wedding dress. It's wild that Raphael has only been in her life 7 years, and it's like a new person at the same time. I guess he's been in earlier because he was technically her boss, but it's a little wild. Rogelio has heart problems from stress, which Zoe tried to warn him about, but he didn't listen. He ruined her wedding shopping dress twice because he did it when he told her he was a father the first time. But I love her wedding 70s dress. It's so cute. Jane is going to give Linnea her eggs, but Linnea loves that she would, but then doesn't want it, which I'm so mad at her for doing that. That's just so awful. She doesn't want to complicate her friendship, and they know that the baby would do that. But she does ask Jane to be the guardian to her future child, and helps her do this cool 70s dress because she's a stylist, and it's awesome. And Raphael is trying to get this pastor to marry him because Jane defended Raphael when this guy accused him of not caring. So she doesn't want to be married to, or she doesn't want to be married by this guy because he doesn't understand how caring Raphael is. Raphael doesn't want any more kids, and she's a little sad by that because she wonders if they will change their mind someday. They want grandma to officiate, and I'm so happy about that. I'm crying. Zoe got into nursing school, but Petra gets into a car crash because her mom, like, sneaks up on her in a car. So, it's a telenovela. So, both of them survive. Her mother is in the hospital, though. Petra was going to pull the plug on her, but she just will not die. Petra realizes that Jane is going to be a stepmom if Petra ever were to die, and so that the girls would be in good hands, and she promises that the girls will be equally loved as Mateo. And Petra gives this whole list of what the girls cannot do and is tested. The twins hate Jane, though, because she tries to control their iPad use. Jane poses as a delivery person to get her manuscripts. You gotta do what you can in this world, you know, you gotta. Jane has the twins help her out, but she's a little mortified because she's like, but we can't lie, so don't lie anymore. This was just like one time. Mateo likes reading his mom's work, though, which is nice. Rogelio finally checks his ego and decides to become a cameo character, and he is taking off to spend time with his family. Bobby uses this, like, trick to get Rogelio's safe code because he, like, puts a tiny camera to see, like, what he punches in, because Luisa asked for something, so Raphael goes to go check on it because he knows if Luisa asks something, it's Rose. Anyway, his dad's watch had a secret compartment that holds a duplicate of his fingerprint, and it's full of stacks and stacks of money. So Jane wrote a crime novel based on, obviously, this whole Rose and Roaster thing, and then she ends up getting panicked because the agent suggests, like, oh, hey, maybe the villain switches the baby, and she's worried that, like, wait, what if Mateo was stitched? And Mateo looks and acts just like them. Also, Rogelio is helping River reconnect with her teenage daughter. But due to that, River does not want to continue with the show. They get a DNA test of Mateo, and Alba slaps Jane in the face because she's mad that the book is based on how she lost her virginity before she was married, and she does not want that story out into the world. Which I can kind of understand, but I don't know that anybody would just, like, assume it was hers. Pond, River's daughter, which is very funny, I just realized. But anyway, she doesn't want her mom to come back to the show either because she didn't even thank her in her Emmy speech. But Rogelio arranges a do-over because I guess when you're rich, you can do whatever you want. And they all heal from that night. But River is going to shoot that show in New York. Jorge actually convinces Jane's grandmother to allow the story to be in there because he understands that when you're undocumented, you live with walls for so long, which is so rough. Alba recorded Magda, Petra's mom's threats to kind of turn the tables on her from pushing, and now Magda can go to jail and leave Petra alone because she's, like, they're trying to franchise the hotel, but the mom would be involved, and, you know, Petra doesn't deserve to deal with all that. Jane wants to go talk to Rose, but Rose stabbed herself in the leg and used this ambulance to escape and had, like, a bunch of decoy roses. But it turns out Luisa was working with the police the whole time, but she ends up killing Bobby and escaping anyway, as Rose does. It's my middle name, so we're just evil geniuses, you know. Jane starts tapping because she's so stressed out, and she goes to a therapist, which is the emotional freedom technique. Michael had never signed his life rights away on the book, so without his permission, the book could never see the light of day, so she has to try to track Michael down, and finds out that Michael is shacked up with Charlie, his rival rancher, and that she's pregnant, so, ooh. Charlie allows them to have permission because at first she was the problem and didn't want to, and they were a family, and Michael just did whatever she wanted, which was weird, but now she sees that since him and Jane are going to end up together like the book, she doesn't care. Rose is looking real good for 51. Rose ends up being in her house when she returns from Michael, which is very scary, and she is forced to make Luisa come
and come fly down, and if Louisa misses, Rose is going to kill somebody she loves, but Louisa doesn't answer when Jane leaves a voicemail. Jane's agent calls to tell her about a book offer, and then Rose demands that they hold out for more money, which sucks. And then poor Raphael calls, and Jane has to act like nothing has been going on, even though she's been a hostage for hours, which is so stressful. I feel so bad. Can tapping help her now? It's just rough. And then Rose threatens Mateo's life if, like, she doesn't convince Ralph to just meet her at the party. Rose makes them wear Martian costumes so no one will recognize who they are, but no one can recognize her, unfortunately. And Jane just, like, starts pecking at Rose, it's about time. So she reveals Rose's real age, and she just rambles on about how Louisa doesn't love Rose, and then Raphael tackles Rose because she distracted the villain with a monologue. But Rose has a gun, so she's ready to shoot. And then Louisa comes in, and she's got a cyanide pill, and she's going to take it so the madness will end. Who knows if this is the best solution, but it is a solution. But Rose goes to stop her, but the cyanide pill is a Tic Tac. And she pushes Rose through a lift that lifts to the stairs, and Rose lands on a spike. And that catches fire, so it is over. She is finally dead. Zoe gets into school in New York from nursing, and they try to get Darcy and the baby to move in with them because Rogelio doesn't want to miss another one of his daughters growing up, which is, fair, and I'm glad he's coming. He's coming around. Darcy and them trick Rogelio into giving Esteban a big part on his show. Ralph leaves the Marabella because he just can't do 2 jobs, and he doesn't want to be chained to his desk at the hotel. He wants a little house to hold his little family because that's what's important. So Petra is managing the Marabella on her own, and the hotel satisfies her way a person ever could. Well, JR's mom passed away, and she's in town, though. The book of Jane's ends up going for auction and sells for $500,000. Like, oh my gosh, the dream. They finally tracked down Raphael's parents, but unfortunately, they both were in a car accident and died. They were regular folks. Zoe is struggling with her decision to move with New York because Mateo does not want her to leave. Raphael honestly handles his news very well about his parents because he is happy that he's got a beautiful family. Jane's favorite author is going to write an endorsement for the back cover, which is awesome. Rogelio says that Raphael can call him dad, which is pretty sweet. Louisa says, "You're welcome to this whole family because without her, none of it would happen." She's got a point. And Petra just breaks down crying. Raphael and Jane say that their love can get them through anything. It's so sweet. Zoe isn't going to move to New York, and the grandmother says, hey, it's fear. She's lived with her mother and daughter their whole life, and New York is scary. But she says, like, hey, if I could start to this country and start over with nothing, she can do it in New York. And do not let fear get into the way of life. I love all the joy and love in this household. What's it like? But maybe that's like what my future is creating. So there's that. Raphael, of course, gets arrested on his wedding day. Not that romantic, but he was helping her get the ending she wanted in her book. So it is what it is. The Uber doesn't work, so she gives everybody $200 on the bus and the driver $5,000 so that they can go to the police station. Thank you, book advance, and a lucky day to be on public transportation. JR and Petra are back together. Then we learn that Mateo is the narrator this whole time. Oh, I'm crying. And then I love the hair, I love the dress, the wedding. I'm still sobbing that Mateo is the narrator the whole time. I can't. He learned to protect his voice and got into voiceover. I'm dead. I cannot. He asked if he should call Zoe mom, and she says no, thank you. Neither of them can get through their vows without crying everywhere, so they just read them silently and exchange rings, and Alba marries them. And they say, Raphael asks what happens to the end of her book, and she says they make it a telenovela, and Raphael goes, who would watch it? And she winks to the fans who have been rooting for it forever. Oh, I'm sobbing forever. What a good show. It did so many amazing things, and I think broke a lot of barriers, and always great to see Latin talent on screen and just Very, very beautiful. Sad that it's over a little bit, but I'm glad that it ended the way that it did. So what did you think? What did you like? If you like these reviews, please consider donating or at least following me on social media, because that helps me leverage other brand deals. Would love to hear your thoughts, and let me know if you'd like me to review anything else. What was your favorite moment of all of the seasons of Jane the Virgin? Would love to continue the discussion down here. Bye.